And so the evening will be a Q&A satsang. We got some questions in writing, and of course we will open it up to your questions here from the audience. So we'll introduce again our speakers. Durga Leela is an Ayurvedic and yoga therapy specialist and the founder of Yoga of Recovery, a comprehensive program that integrates Ayurveda and yoga with recovery tools for those affected by addiction and self-destructive behaviors. She teaches a holistic approach to recovery, integrating mind, body, and spirit. She overcame her own struggles with addiction and is a grateful member of 12-step fellowships for over 20 years. She's the author of Yoga of Recovery, integrating yoga and Ayurveda with modern recovery tools for addiction, with a foreword by Dr. David Frawley. And Julie Reisler is a master spiritual coach, intuitive mentor, TEDx speaker, and founder of the USTU movement dedicated to helping people live as their most authentic selves. Blending science, intuition, and deep empathy, her work bridges neuroscience, spiritual growth, and personal transformation. She holds a master's in health and wellness coaching and is board certified through the NBHWC and ICF. Let us welcome Durga Leela and Julie Reisler.
Shivaya. Okay, welcome. We are happy to be here in what do two people make? Not a panel, but a duet. So we have had some very engaging, very participative workshops during the day, and I know here we are with our larger group in the evenings, and I hope you had a nice day off today, the teacher training course students. I know what that was like, homework and laundry, and hopefully some beach, although it has been cold here today. So welcome to our people on at home. It hasn't been a sunny day in the Bahamas, but it has been a good day. We have some questions, so a couple of people understood we were doing this and said, can I just give you this question? But we would also like to hear some questions, so we're going to try and mix that. And I want to offer this first question, which is from someone here, hopefully tonight. And the question is, how to support a family member seeking help for relapse? I still can't trust him, is the question. And so we have just come from a 12-step fellowship meeting, which are always highly instructive because people are sharing their feelings and what they use as tools to live another day, live a better day, and live a day of hope and prayer and service. So the meeting tonight was about prayer. And I want to offer a prayer, and if you would like to learn this prayer, I think it's a help, just like a mantra, like an affirmation. And this is a version of the Serenity Prayer. So I will say it once through, and then if you wish, you can say it with me, and we'll repeat it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. It's my stand-up act. So that gets giggles, right? Because that's true, right? The one we can change is me. So would you like to say that prayer with me? Okay, let's do it together. God,
God,
grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, courage
to change
the
the one that I can,
and the
and wisdom to know that one is me.
So the yogis talk about self-realization, and Julie has been talking about the courage, and she's always pointing to the French word, the cœur, the heart. So this space that is created for healing. We'll sometimes say it needs to be a safe space. In truth, it needs to be a brave space, because healing takes this extra energy where it might be just easier to not say anything and just settle down and hunker down and just like let everybody do what they're doing and like withdraw and isolate. So the movement towards being here, asking questions, that's a great help. And the other thing I would say about that question, which fascinates me, is being a member of 12-Step Fellowship. The first program was Alcoholics Anonymous. Really, the second program could have been Narcotics Anonymous, because there was a fairly big drug problem. But the second program was Al-Anon, for the friends and family and relatives of the people that were in the first program getting recovery, getting better. The people that had been trying to help them get better discovered that they needed to find a way to go beyond, and sometimes we'll say their own codependency or rescuing or caretaking behaviors, and find where to use that energy now for themselves through their own coping mechanisms and cognitive distortions that had been created through living with someone that was attempting to find a different way to live and heal, but it's not always a straight path, right? So the healing path doesn't tend to have a linear upward progression the whole time. There's some downward slopes, and then there's some growth again, and we need to keep showing up day by day for each other. So, Julie, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I appreciate what you said. I think the only thing that I would add, there's also two things. One, which is we just said the prayer, we can't make anyone do anything or change anybody else but ourselves. So keeping that reminder, this is a big thing of what Al-Anon is about, and overcoming codependency. And the other is the reminder, I'm sure you've all heard, when you're pointing a finger at somebody, you have three fingers pointing back at yourself. And so to remember that there is always something deeper to also look and bring into your own heart for yourself, and that we can't change our loved ones. We can't change anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Thank you. So Rukmini introduced this as a question and answer session. I always like to think of questions and responses to questions. I leave the answers to Swami Swarupananda. The responses hopefully will be helpful. But if this was more of a recovery setting, then it would be a dialogue. It would be two-way, right? But here's one of the first questions we got. Many patients are not ready for abstinence at the time where we enter their life. So this is a question from a doctor specializing in addiction, right? What would you propose? What works better? And do you adapt your plan for people who are using actively substances? So if I was to say this from my perspective in my work, firstly, my work for years was running recovery retreats and courses in places like this, ashrams. So the invitation was worded, we require you to have 90 days continuous abstinence if you're chemically or alcohol addicted. And this is because we are not a medical facility. If you need the level of help that would be the initial acute care stages, we would like you to find the appropriate help. And if you are 90 days abstinent, then you can join us on this retreat. So it's really important for people to know what level of help is available, because addiction is it's one addiction process, and it's a big spectrum of disorder. So how did I phrase that for the behavioral disorders? That was phrased as, if you are, in a behavioral disorder, you must have enough stability to follow a disciplined daily schedule without any supervision, right? So a person would have to read that and think, okay, is this for me? And even some people that wouldn't possibly have 90 days abstinence probably could do that, because not everyone is in danger of, seizures or something coming off a drug or alcohol, right? I was not, but I know people in my family and other people in my recovery journey who are. So that's a little bit of my personal answer to that. And what I would add to the abstinence question in general is this is a topic for discussion across the whole recovery field. And it's given a term, harm reduction. And it's also being dealt with something that is fairly new in the field, like maybe in the last 15 years, where medication assisted has come in. So where we're using stabilization techniques through pharmaceuticals, which didn't used to be the case in most of the large rehabs in the USA, but they moved into that, especially on the other side where the addiction problem was increasing with the opiate crisis. So bigger medicine had to be brought in. And my observation of that is it started off, it seemed, as medication-assisted detox. And then that moved to a term called medication-assisted treatment. And now it sits at medication-assisted recovery. And so the abstinence thing is always this stabilization and timeline. And I don't know if I have 100% straight up answer for that, but it is a timeline. Like, what would you expect from someone in the first couple of weeks or a few months? And what is a treatment timeline? Is it a 28-day residential rehab, or is it much longer than that? And what way would we move treatment across a timeline? Julie?
Yeah, I have two different answers and responses. So for me, in my business with the clients that I work with, typically I train students to become intuitive coaches, and I also coach people in their lives. And 99.99% of the clients I'm working with, the people that are coming in, have at least 90 days of some sort of baseline sobriety abstinence. I'm thinking of actually a gold medal skater I worked with who was actually got very into Vipassana, and she had a relapse about 6 months before we worked together. And actually, it was that experience, that relapse, that ended up being life-changing for her. And we started working 6 months after that. So that's me personally, as in the coaching world and what I do. I teach at Georgetown University in their health and wellness coaching program. I've taught there for the last 10 years. And part of what we do work with there is the model of, in the medical system, in integrative health, working with patients or clients who do have addiction, who do come in with, with disease model, with whether it's disease, mental illness, addiction. And it's a little bit different in that model, because as a health and wellness coach, you're helping your client to be empowered and find ways to move through whatever they're struggling with in a way that's coming from choice, empowerment. And so the students that I've taught for years in dealing with clients or patients with addiction, they may not have abstinence or sobriety. And so it's always, it's never giving the answer. It's helping them to get that answer themselves, which is actually much more empowering. So it's a little bit different in that model. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That gives a sense.
Yeah, thank you. As we see, there's a lot of context needed really for each question, like where are you working, who are you working with, what is the substance, is it a relapse or is it a first time entry into treatment? These things matter. Okay, so I'll pick this question. Addiction often comes with multiple traumas. How do you take care of them, work with them, prevent re-traumatization? Shall I start or you?
I'll follow you. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, this is a big conversation, especially now, and the conversation has taken many different perspectives, but it is generally known that there's often underlying trauma, and a result of that is addiction. The thing with trauma is that we have to generally build less from the top-down approach, more from the bottom-up approach, right? So we have to have the person grounded and feeling a place of safety, feeling a place of trust. And so therefore, say the person is coming into something like we do, a yoga class, then when we're teaching that trauma-responsive, trauma-informed way, choice has to be part of the classroom setting. I have been trained in many different ways to approach that, when we were talking about life is longing, we said honor the longing with sacred time and space. So one of the things is to introduce the people to the space that they're in, and also to let them know what noises, what doors and exits are in their room, because there's this idea of like something coming into their space, which is triggering for them. So I know I've taught for recovery people, and as we're sitting, we have them locate themselves in the room. So where's the windows, where's the doors, like the sound of the doors are going to be kept open or closed. So if the door opens, I have my eyes on it, but also telling them they can have their eyes open or closed, not insisting that people close their eyes, because that can be unsettling for them. And then to give choice about postures, to not be too directive. And I was also thinking, and I went to talk to reception, that because I thought this was happening, we are having a trauma-informed yoga course here, starting on the 21st to the 25th. And it is increasingly something where we have already gone out teaching yoga, wanting to help people with these disorders and addictions. And what we're finding is that people need something more than just a standard yoga class. So we've gone into, we're training yoga therapists. And then even within the yoga therapy field, there's these more specialized areas where people are showing up to teach us about the trauma responsive, trauma informed. So as we reach out to meet the people suffering with a problem, we are willing and flexible and adaptable to keep adding different aspects to the offerings so that they feel welcome, safe, and that they can be there participating in the modality that's being offered. So I'll pass to you.
Yeah, I would just add, in terms of when I work with and I certify and teach coaches, and especially going out in the world and working with people with all different kinds of, whether it's illness or trauma, we have a framework. It's called the Sacred Framework, and the first competency is all about sacred space and really understanding how to do that. And that is not just, it's not just your words, it's your presence, it's your tone, it's understanding that whoever you are working with is a complex being, and not just the stories they're sharing, not just the trauma that they're, like you were saying, Durga, really getting everyone's needs are different and to be so in tune. That's why I do a lot with intuition, really understanding and being in tune with the person that you're meeting with. What are they saying and not saying, how they're holding themselves, what makes them feel safe, what doesn't. So that sacred space, that's something we spend a lot of time on. And part of that is actually learning to be sacred space with yourself. And so something I practice and I teach and I believe in that, we can't give away what we don't have and we can't create that space if we don't know how to do that ourselves. So that's a little bit of a different perspective, but I know in working with a lot of different people that are becoming coaches in this field that want to bring in intuition and healing and health and well-being, that sacred space is really important.
Yeah, true. And I mentioned time also. So another aspect of meeting the trauma is if we have, like here we have 45 minutes maybe, that when I'm in a class like that, I would say, so for the first 5 minutes, for the next 20 minutes, perhaps for 10 minutes at the end, and I would kind of describe what we hope to offer within the time available so that they're not walking into the unknown, to put them a little bit at rest of, like, maybe this too shall pass, this is only going to be for 5 minutes, and then something else will happen. Because if we're having them, like maybe lie down in stillness and they really don't think they can do it, but I've already announced this is a 2-minute, then it helps them know, okay, this isn't forever, right? And again, the choice of movement if you need to move. Another thing we do in Yoga of Recovery is we always do an inner resource meditation because we cannot guarantee safe spaces. One of the things that I've always learned, and, I teach in ashrams a lot, so it's a lot of silence and meditation. But actually, when you sit down hoping for silence, what do you find? It's like an intense level of sound and noise going on because, construction's happening and the gardens are being looked after. So, for instance, Sundari, thank you for the Yoga Nidra. And as soon as we go to teach Yoga Nidra, somebody's going to come out with a leaf blower or something, right? So we're always having to resource a person into an inner felt sensation of at ease, safety, and security, because we need to have that as that really like top-down effect of spirit living in this body can find that space more so inside than outside, but that has to be a constantly repeated practice and not some idea of it, but maybe for a moment or a day in your life where you did have a sense of safety and it might have been on, who knows, sitting under a tree in a field somewhere, and you just had that moment where you knew things were okay, to bring that sensation back in as a felt sense in the body and have that there for yourself so that you can go into that space anytime you need it. And that might be in a traffic jam, that might be in a yoga class, that might be in a therapy session. So that's called inner resource. I was trained in that as a helpful tool with iRest, Yoga Nidra, Richard Miller. And we use it all the time because that's our thing. We cannot make it safe for you because we don't even know what triggers that sense of unsafe, alert, triggered feeling for you. It could be a word. How can we protect you from a word? So we have to resource you from the inside. Okay, so maybe we'll do one more question from here. We had 5, and I'm just going to see if you want to choose the home one. Okay, all right. So let me see. We'll do one more, and then let's see this one. Shame is a big part of addiction. Do you have any specific activities, movements to address it?
I'll start there. Yep. Done many, many practices around this. So similar to what you were kind of talking about, Durga, with shame and understanding that our emotions, our issues are in the tissues, probably heard of that we can carry that around. And so love using a somatic approach. Obviously, there is yoga. Something that I've worked with many people is, so number one, shaking, like actually practices like what the animals do. If you've ever read Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, what do animals do after they have a scary experience? They shake it off. So literally using your body, shaking. The practice that I talked a little bit last night about connecting to heart and heart coherence and creating safety in yourself, using your hand on your heart, breathing into your heart, heart-centered breathing, for anyone who's done work with the Heart Math Institute or Heart Intelligence, or using those kinds of tools and techniques, really powerful. Another one is using mantras, affirmations. I just had one that completely slipped my mind. It'll come back, but that's okay. The heart-centered work, as I had said, and tapping, EFT, tapping, using points. There are 8, but there are many different points. Top of the head, over the eyebrows, under the eyes, over the lips, on the chin, on your clavicle area, right under your ribs, on the sides of your hands, and using statements that are very specific. Basically, the formula is this. If you haven't done this, we could even practice this. It's so powerful. Even though I feel shame about, even though I feel embarrassed about, even though whatever it is, and you name it, and for many, especially with addiction, naming the emotion, that's very healing. It also puts an empowering lens, like I am feeling it, I'm not avoiding it, I'm not shoving it down. So even though I'm feeling shame about drinking that thing, I fully love and accept myself. It's a very simple formula. I interviewed Donna Eden, if anyone knows, who does energy medicine, and there's a lot, and Nick Ortner with EFT. There's so much healing that can happen when we do that, especially on those specific points in our body. And so that's something I've used a lot in a somatic way, is the tapping. And you could just pick one point. You can do it anywhere. I always love it because it's free. Those are some things I know in terms of somatic. And then, of course, using journaling and writing, and as well as working with therapists and working with somebody else. We say in the 12-step world, you're not meant to do life alone. So shame lives beautifully when you hold it inside and you don't talk about it, which might sound kind of funny to say it that way, but what happens is when you bring the light on shame, when you take, I think of it like a flashlight, point it on shame, what happens? It starts to lose its power. So finding someone else that you can trust, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a coach or a trusted friend, or somebody that you're connected with here, or somebody that you feel a bond with, that can start to dissipate shame. And when we start to bring it into the air, that light begins to transform it, alchemize it. So that's those are other tools as well. But the somatic ones I find work really, really well. They've completely helped me in my healing journey.
Yeah. I like the tapping, and that's the first time I saw the tapping was drug court people had come to a holistic recovery conference, and they were so impressed by the results they were getting from the emotional freedom technique. And Donna Eden was here teaching, and Swami Sita and I were meeting with her husband, David Feinstein, and he was telling us that he had taken that to the Congress, the government, as energy psychology, and mostly to help work with the Veterans Association, also using in drug courts for this non-pharmacological intervention for cravings, for trauma, for pain, all of these things. So a lot of the more subtle techniques have been adopted because of, shall I use the word desperation? Like the methods that we've been using haven't been working. So they've been more willing to reach out for more helpful answers, which is kind of amazing. And because we're sitting here in a yoga ashram, and yoga recovery comes from yogic medicine. And yogic medicine is to understand how to therapeutically apply the 4 paths of yoga. So, what we're first looking at is the causal aspect, which is the gunas, the mahagunas, so the sattva, rajas, and tamas. And shame is tamas. Shame is this heavy layering, veiling of the light of the self. And so I like how our person phrased the question, because she's answered it herself, because she says, let me find it. Do you have any specific activities, movements to address it? So if you want to shift tamas, which is stuckness, as you were saying, secrets, isolation, not being able to speak, it's move the body. So move. And hatha yoga is a really good thing to move the body, because when you're moving that body, then the prana starts to circulate. And the prana is this intelligence, and it reminds the person of the connection, so things can shift. I was teaching in a recovery retreat, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell. The next year I went back and I was teaching again, and somebody said, "Hi, do you remember me?" And I said, "Sorry, no, I don't. Were you here last year?" And she said, "Yeah, but I've lost 50 pounds since I saw you last year." And I said, "Oh, how amazing. Like, what did you do?" And she said, "I was in yoga class and I had been really overeating in recovery from alcoholism. And you said, raise your right leg up and then place it back down, and raise your left leg up and place it back down. And when I did that, my body remembered what it felt like to move freely. And it asked me to allow that to happen again." So I said, "Did you use a particular diet?" And she said, "I ate 3 meals a day, only natural food and no snacking." So the body remembered just through the movement. And I thought, how profound is that? But that is the nature of who we are. So when we say rajas, which is the one of activity, the activity, especially in hatha yoga, is the asana, the pranayama applied to the state where we can shift things, or if things are overactive, we can calm things, right? So to know that that overall thing is some things need to be activated and some things need to be calmed down. That's the work of shifting tamas to rajas, and then also shifting rajas to a more sattvic state. So whatever the issue is that we have, if we know the basic components of our own healing system, we can apply all the tools and techniques we have, and we can apply the same asana in different ways. We can have the attention on a different place. We can have the breath moving differently. We can have it speeded up or slowed down. So to understand what we're working with energetically helps us to understand how we might reach that person. Okay, so the rigorous practice, the practice every single day, these are the things that shift tamas, that shame, that stuckness. And you said last night, we are as sick as our secrets. Some people like to say we are as stuck as our secrets, because the tamas holds the incorrect coping mechanisms in place, because it's kind of trapped in its own darkness. It can't see a way out. So we need to shift and move that. And then David Frawley, my teacher, also says the best way out of tamas is karma yoga. So another way of not having to really take on the philosophical aspects and use the intellect, but to just show up and be part of something, doing the dishes, sweeping the floor, putting the chairs out, putting the chairs away. Karma yoga is another way that you can shift tamas. And that is about purification. That is about the self coming back home to itself, the light being revealed again. So we have more questions here. but I'd like to take a pause point, and we have maybe 10 minutes. And I think if we have any questions, if there's any clarification needed, I'm not sure who's there. Is it Narayan? Yeah. Oh, Rukmini has the microphone. If anyone would like to, and if you would say your name as you speak, just so we know who you are. One thing I would say is and TTC, you might know this, I did my TTC in 2002 and it's now 2026. And there's so much within a short period in an ashram that like there's like a lot of time needed to unpack what has just been happening here in 4 days in a symposium. So you might want to email us questions a week or 2 weeks from now, and we'll bring them back here next year. Hi, I see you, and I think a microphone's coming. You can call out your name if you wish. Just about.
Turn it on.
Thank you. Okay. Maybe yours?
I'll turn mine on.
Hello, my name is Diego. When you have a client and you bring them into the room, how come you open the doors or let them hear what it sounds like, or how come you open the windows as well?
How can I do that?
No, why? Why do you let them hear the sound of the door opening or closing? Why do you leave them open? And why do you let them open or close their eyes? Why do you give them the option?
Okay. Generally, a lot of people, I don't know the actual numbers, but say if we're talking about females, maybe 1 in 8 people have been abused in their lifetime, and so that often ends up with addictions. And so the relational trauma that people have been through, if you lie them down, say in a shavasana, and you ask them to close their eyes, they'll be very triggered by sound, and we're trying to give them a few moments of relaxation. So if we've already clued them to where sound might come from, what it might sound like, also inviting them to be in the place where they feel safest in the room, that's allowing them to find space that they might be able to enter into a relaxation response. So Julie especially has been using the sympathetic parasympathetic. So if we're in a practice, we want to create a space that they could at least identify, okay, this is the door opening. Now, me as a teacher, I would often say the door has opened and someone is now knowing we're in class and closing the door again, so that they don't have to keep interrupting their own process and class and practice to check for safety, right? So we're trying to come to an agreement and then also know the space that we're in. Does that answer that, Diego? Okay. And Julie?
I'll just add really quickly, because when I teach either yoga or working with a group, the other thing that I'll do is, for example, if we're doing a meditation, is always offer, so the option, you can close your eyes, or if that does not feel good to you, you can gaze ahead. If putting your hand on your heart doesn't feel good to you, there's options, because I've actually had people that are not comfortable closing their eyes. It feels unsafe. I had a woman once who had a husband that died of a heart attack. She, putting her hand on her heart, did not feel safe to her. So just giving those options is another aspect of creating safety, psychological safety, body safety, so that rest and being present and calm can happen.
And there are some good articles, there are some good books. I think our trauma-informed class is coming from David Emerson's TSY, what does that mean? Trauma-centered, trauma-sensitive yoga? Oh, I got it right. TCY. Yeah. So that's going to happen here. And, you know, if you go on Google, people have written articles. So here's 6 points that you can offer to people to be a little bit more trauma informed in a class. It's, you know, you can sort of pick up skills as you go along. You can pick up skills as we observe people, because that is where these teachings are coming from. Like being willing to say, if you've got any feedback in this class, I'm here after class if you want to come and talk to me. You know, definitely we're taught here in Shivananda that when we're teaching this Shavasana, that we should be in one position and not walking around, like, you know, walking past someone's head and things, because we're trying to let go and relax. So we want them to be as calm and still and in that space as possible. But as we say, there is no such thing as complete silence, right? So sometimes the teacher is having to verbalize something so that not everybody has to be looking around them, right? And that's something as you are in teacher training, like maybe offer to your students the time for feedback, and you will learn a lot because everybody's different. So it's good to feel that they have a capacity to be able to share with you and you can receive it. And one thing I know from all the years that I've been doing this work is I really don't have all the answers. And it's nice to be able to say, I'm really glad you've shared that with me. I will need to go away and think on that and probably refer to my teachers for guidance, but I will get back to you. So it's not purely down to me. It's, to resource ourselves as a group and as a community. I know Shivananda has 70,000 trained yoga teachers, so we can be gathering information and feeding it back. We have these teachers meetings. I believe we're having one at the Yoga Farm in California in May, where everyone that's done a TTC is invited in to stay. If you bring your own tent, you stay for free. And then we're going to teach classes and hear back from the teachers. How's the teaching going? What's needed out there in the world? So this reciprocal relationship, teacher to student, teachers to communities, I think it's a beautiful thing. And it's the only way we're going to respond to trauma, because a question that came up from the doctor was, how do we resolve the fracture between the allopathic medical model and the holistic model? People themselves are resolving it because they choose where to go. They choose both systems, and then we have all these other aspects of obstacles, right? The availability, the insurance, the financials, right? So could we resolve that question here now? Yes, to the extent that if we're training you in yoga, can we stay connected to find out what do the community need from yoga and how can we better provide it? A lot of the basics of yoga, and when I don't know something, I'm very glad for Swami Shivananda, because his saying of serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize, just to know those words is enough for me to kind of root back down to there is a solution, and I can speak from simple words like that, I'm here to serve you, and my teachers are there, so I'll go back and talk to them and I'll come back with a response, right? So we don't need to know everything, and we can be in conversation so that the person feels included and is more inclined to come back and ask. Asking is a big thing for healing. What help is needed? Thank you for that question. And I think we are kind of at time. In recovery, we would say, is there any burning desire? In a satsang, there's the way that we can ask questions. And I've said every time I'm up here, we're there having meals. I'm hoping to be able to do some dishes tomorrow night. Oh no, we're still having our 12-step meeting. So we're around the ashram, and we know that a lot of you actually feel safer in the sense of you come up to us and you drop a word in our ear as we're passing you. And thank you for sharing your longings with me. It's been beautiful to hear that as well. So Julie's leaving tomorrow morning. I'm leaving the next morning. We are still here. So if you are the person, and I would be this person that I would want to ask the question more on a one-on-one basis, we are here to take more questions from you. And if we don't know the answer, we'll ask our beloved teachers and we'll share responses with you. And 365 days a year, that is happening at the ashram. And I'm sitting here because I participate in a sangha, and the sangha shares wisdom, and I am glad for it. And I am really grateful that Julie is out in the world doing her work. First time I'm meeting Julie, and it's been a real honor and a pleasure. And I am deeply grateful for the work that she's doing. We share a lot in common with the work we're doing. And I hope to meet you again somewhere down the road. And I'll listen to your podcast. The youest you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Julie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, come to us after this is over. If you're up early, I'll be on the beach walking. Come find me. Come find Durga, but we're here. Or reach out after. It's our pleasure, honored to be here to serve. So much love.
And we want to say love to Rory, because Rory was ill and we missed you. And we hope I meet you someday, and Julie will be coming back to see how you are. Thank you, Rukmini.